So, hello, my name is Iris Sullivan Dare, and I'm here with the beautiful Ginger Edwards. And this is the Nurture Podcast, where we explore that riparian zone between what is and what is possible. And
Yeah.
we've still got a house full of family, so I'm in, uh, I'm in my studio today, Ginger.
I know it looks cool to have you in your official nest, like where you belong. To me, like that is the setting that Iris should be in.
Oh, that's good.
If I bought the Iris doll, like if you were Barbie, you would come with that box, like all the
Oh, nice.
papers.
Oh, nice, actually. I know it doesn't have that I realized when I got everything perfect for Open Studio a couple of weekends ago that I'm like, there's still significant clutter, but it's pretty organized right now. And I was like,
Yeah.
there are so many moving parts to everything I do.
Yeah. Like I
Like
don't
so
ever
many.
see you not having at least that many things. Like it looks very organized and nice. So,
So,
for those people who can't see it, I guess we should probably stop talking about how your studio
oh.
looks.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
We can describe it to them. So what are you nurturing right now, Iris?
So what I am nurturing is I had a conversation recently about someone talking about having an article of clothing that was significantly meaningful to them, which totally made me start thinking again about this concept I have of like cloth with a calling
Hmm.
and just like meaningful cloth. And then I had another conversation about with my son actually about choosing when preparing to do something kind of important like um go before like have a like go to a meeting for like a student activist thing that he was involved in and they chose to all wear this same color shirt so that they felt like a unified voice
Mm-hmm.
and just thinking about the ways in which we so naturally seek out talismans in what we keep close to us and how like extraction culture and consumerism and all of that kind of tends to just gloss over that as though it's a non-important thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so when everything that we have is um, made in factories versus handmade, then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, people still do it. Even that, even still, people have their favorite sweatshirt that they wear, you know, or they have the pair of shoes that they need to wear if they have to go to an interview. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just that they're the nice shoes, because they might have more than one pair of nice shoes. It's the interview shoes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, and then so today I just made two madder red silks for two young people that just got their first period um and I was like, oh, I need to make them a talisman. So
Mm-hmm.
um anyway, so that's it's really full in my head right now of like meaning and hidden meaning and how life enhancing that is. But then at the same side, how do you interact? How do those meaningful objects interact in the world? And does it matter if no one else recognizes it?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm hoping that sparks something in you. If not, I'm totally willing to think about something else.
You're like, I don't have to think about that at all, actually. Uh yeah, no, that's really cool. It does there's lots of things in there that I mean there's so much you just laid out that I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I mean, one of the parts as you said, is what we make of it. Like we have meanings we attach to things and it wouldn't mean anything if we didn't make it mean that. Do you know what I mean? Like our thoughts,
Correct.
our intention imbue things with meaning. And we have to be really careful about that because we can make things mean all kinds of stuff that they don't
Correct.
necessarily mean anything. And so I think that I've always wondered that. Like I've even gotten to the point where I'm like, would there even, if you think about statues of gods and goddesses from like ancient Greece and stuff, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
if no one's going to them and laying offerings at their, carved marble feet anymore, are they just sitting in museums, like trapped in marble, being like, what's up? Like nobody cares anymore? Or were they always just a representation of intention that people, that people imbued with their own meaning at the time? And then afterwards, they're just an artifact. They're just a memory of a time when those people lived and thought that was important. And now it's just a sitting in a museum or, in a ruin somewhere. I mean, and if you
Yeah.
pray to something for thousands of years and nobody is there to pray to it anymore, does that object still sacred?
Right. Actually, that's do you know Terry Pratchett? I feel like I'm always
Yeah.
talking about Terry Pratchett.
Mm-hmm.
Sam is actually rereading I think it's called Small Gods or Little Gods or something. And it's a totally also this topic.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the he was saying that one of the gods, the society's kind of moved on, but he's kind of like he so no longer has any
Yeah.
power, but he's still around, like kind of, trapped in the statue, so to speak.
Yeah, I feel
Um,
that. I feel that sometimes. Like I have this statue of Artemis, and it's the one, not everyone's gonna realize what I'm talking about, but the one from Ephesus. So it's like, or Ephesus from Turkey. So she's a really ancient goddess. Way before the Greeks grabbed onto her, she had this much longer, thousands and thousands of years lineage as this, kind of primary goddess of, this part of Turkey and the whole region actually. And so the statue is of her, and she has all these. It looks like breasts, but what they've actually realized is that they think it's like a whole bunch, like maybe 50 breasts or something. And they, but it's not breasts. Now recently they just discovered they think it's the queen bee sacs. What they look like in the hive, they actually hang differently
oh,
when they make a queen sac. And so I think it's like she's adorned with all these queen bee sacs to signify that she is this queen, of the honeybee hive. And then that statue does have bees carved in it, like actual bees down her side. So it would make sense that those were like, so anyway, I don't know why I'm
whoa.
going off on that, but that statue always spoke to me. I don't know where I got it. I mean, a long, long time ago. I mean, we're talking way back, like high school, maybe early college, and probably early college. And it's, I don't know, it's always been really powerful. And then
Yeah.
it's been powerful for me. Like it speaks to me. I don't know why. So I used to have a little altar and she would be on it and I just got a vibe from it, and I don't know what that is. Like I didn't even know, I think when I found the statue, who it represented until I, looked it up and figured out this was Artemis. And I put it away in a box. Like it was in my barn in a box for a long time. I just didn't, wasn't part of my world. And then after the divorce, I actually got it out. And I thought of it like for the first time ever. I was like, where is that statue? And I went and dug it out. And there was something about it that was like, yeah, this speaks to a part of me that I haven't thought about in a long time. Like there was
Oh,
and it
interesting.
felt just as powerful. And I put her back up and I was kind of like, sorry, you've been sitting in a box, like
Yeah.
dusted her off, like, oh damn. And so all I know is that she's a talisman that is like related to a certain part of me that
Hmm.
after the divorce came back online and was like, I want my statue. Like, where's that? So there's
Well,
that. I don't know what to make of it actually, but it's one of my personal, I guess, I don't know if she's called a talisman, if it's a statue of a deity, but I've always found that particular one, not all the ones I have. Some of them I just buy and think they're pretty and I put in my garden and I don't think of them. This one in particular, it's got a lot
well,
of juice.
yeah, and and maybe what it is that it's has the capacity to be kind of like an antenna,
Mm,
because like where do all those thoughts go? If time is not linear, if time is somehow all time or circular or whatever, it seems like everything that people have believed is kind of just it's out in the airwaves,
mm,
and like we are antennas also, and so it's like, you need this energy. I'm like
mm.
realizing my hands are totally red from squeezing the bag with madder root in it. So um I'm
In cosmic, you're
waving.
like waving your red hands.
I know. I haven't killed anyone. Um but yeah, like it totally makes sense because it's like it's the same as if like you when you're walking on the beach and you look down and suddenly there's a rock and it's like it's not glowing in the dark, but it feels like it. Like it's
Yeah.
totally like boing, like, oh, I need to touch that rock, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like the material world, I think, is communicating with us.
Mm.
And so in that case, like we were saying earlier, that like we give we give meaning to objects, but maybe there's more going on. Like maybe there's more than one
Mm-hmm.
option. Maybe some objects are already like, but of course, whoever made that, what were they thinking? Like, and you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah,
it's,
exactly. Or maybe it's just a piece of me that has a past life memory of that particular
oh,
statue. I mean, it was there for thousands of, it was a big deal for a long time in a part of the world. I
yeah,
mean, I could have interacted with that image, and it's like, that's my best theory on it, is igniting a part of my psyche that remembers something. Like I don't have any memory of it in this lifetime, but some part of me recognizes the power of that, whatever that,
yeah,
energy is. I really like when you said everything's floating around in the air and we're just kind of like antennas that we can pick. I always thought of as a radio station, like, or like a radio dial, like, depending on where we are, we're picking up different frequencies. But yeah, they are
yes,
all available, and we are the radios, and we just can tune into here, tune into there. And if you're not on the station, like you're not picking up any of that, but doesn't mean it's not there. It just means
right,
that you're not
right.
tuned into that, or you're not even maybe in the right place to pick up that. But like you have to move around sometimes to pick up different signals. And I've always liked that idea that everything's floating. And
It's all here now. It's
yeah,
all now. It's all
it's all
now.
about tuning the receptor. I mean, we try to go and find the signal or try to make things happen, but really, I think our job is just to become a clear receiver. Like a little phrase that's been coming to me a lot lately called it's just like clear the channel. Like that's the
Mm,
only thing you have to work on, is just clear the channel. And sometimes I'm doing yoga or meditating. It's like, yeah, clear the channel, like that's what you're doing. You're not doing yoga. You're
right.
clearing the channel. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting to think of it that way. Yeah, I like that. So my
Well, and
intention then goes to, yeah, clear the channel, whatever that looks like, body, get to it.
and, and like if you're oh sorry, it just apparently I
That's
really
okay.
cleared the channel. I just cleared all
I
my
know. I'm
thoughts and
like, clear
words.
the channel. And Iris is
Woo!
like, God. Wow, you took that direction. So you like heard that and like, and
Shoo.
done.
I am completely clear.
Okay, well,
No,
here's another talisman I could talk about while you're getting your
yeah.
single back. I have the problem because I have a quilt, a beautiful, beautiful quilt that was made for my wedding by our whole community and my family and Brigham's family. And like, I have this, it's beautiful. And I have no idea what to do with it. It's just imbued with all of this love and energy for a marriage that doesn't exist anymore. And I'm like, it's just folded up and I look at it and I'm like, I gotta do something. I feel like I need to do something with it, but I
Yes.
really, really don't know what to do. Like
Does
nothing.
it does it have your names on it?
Um, no, maybe it has our names on it somewhere. But not in the obvious way, but it's like all the imagery, of course, is all like about us both
Yes.
and forth. Um, so it's like things that again, you get these you get these things, these material things handmade with love, all quilted, all beautiful. And I'm like, this is so powerful and I don't want it.
Right.
Because
Right.
it's like it's holding something that I need to let go of. Like I need to disperse this.
Yes.
And I can't think of anything. Like my best thought is to burn it, which feels really hard because so much love and energy and tension went into it.
Yes.
Like the marriage. Do you know what I mean? But
Yes.
in a way, anything less than kind of a sacred burning feels like I'm not going to give it to Goodwill. And,
Right.
it's too personal for anybody else to take. I mean, it really is about our marriage. Like there is, like, it's not just a regular old quilt. So I don't know. I'm up for ideas.
Oh, it's interesting to me because I feel like your your I feel like it could have a ritual um purpose. And
Hmm.
like also if it's probably mostly natural fibers, like we could totally dye it something and make it like, you know what I mean? I think about like
Mhm.
when like in the Victorian era when somebody died, they would dye all their clothes black. You know what I mean? Like it could be
Sorry, this is
no,
awful. We should dye it black.
yes. I mean, we totally could,
Oh,
you
oh
know?
man, that would be, I don't know how I feel about that.
I know. So I'm just saying, like just expanding the sample space here,
Okay, okay.
because I think part of it, like I also am totally burning things. I think is can be a super potent and good, like not necessarily a terrible thing at
Hmm.
all. But also, like I think that there is something to celebrate about how you navigated the end of that marriage. That's
Indeed.
as like potent. There's a huge potency to that. And I think that when someone gets married and the community comes together to hold those two people,
Hmm.
I think that it's okay to have room to also hold their uncoupling,
Right.
you know, and
Yeah.
that love is still like that that love is still around, right? So
Right.
like I think also it's like there that whole thing of like things being a constraint and
Mm.
feeling like you get somebody's one of my kids, I have the greatest conversations. My boys are home right now. Um, was talking about like for most of what I'm sure I think this was them. Like there most of human history, people lived in big extended families, so people weren't really buying furniture.
Mm.
And like right now, like people go off on their own and you set up a house and you have to have furniture and then your parents die and then you have their furniture and then they've had like this
Hmm.
crazy, like there's this stuff thing and this time in history and it
Hmm.
it can just be like a, you know,
Yep, for sure.
I
Yeah, we
mean,
don't have that. I mean, we in general don't have that tradition of like, yeah, handing down grandma's dressers and you know what I mean? Like I think my mom's got some things from like my grandma, but that's probably going to end with her. You know what I mean? It just kind of,
yes,
I don't want them. And it's just, yeah, it's interesting. You're right. I mean, those are the talismans of ancestry that are in America. Like not,
just kind of
not so
gone.
much, not so much. I mean, maybe a few things, right? Get handed down. Um, but
But
there you go. Just
it
another example
does,
of living in a materialistic consumer culture, like you said, where well, I said it's consumer culture because we like to get things and we like them to be new and shiny and like the new thing. And materialism is actually like that love of the actual, like that would be the, if we were material, really, we would love things and hold on to them and take care of them because we, you know, the material itself is like sacred to us, which not so much in America. Like it's more just about consumption. Like we like, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, so
And
yeah, I'm,
it's like I think about what like what like I'm curious about when but if for like the average person, I feel like I know I'm like this crazy outlier because I'm an artist and I have a lot of artist friends and so like I have a lot of handmade things in my house. Like it's, I have rugs that I've woven and most of the cups and bowls we drink and eat out of are made by people we know. And so it's kind of this weird in my clothes. I make my clothes, like I live very like probably way over on the continuum of that. But like I think a lot about what would it look like? How would it address some of because I think people are consumeristic because they are missing that sense of belonging that
mm,
comes from many things, but in part, like our separation from tribe is
mm,
so fragmented, like like in what and like all of the ways that we care for each other, the way that care has become professionalized
mhm,
at every level of our life instead of something that we give each other and take care of each other with.
mhm.
And that the things that would are closest to us as an expression of care, how much is that part of people's lives? I'm not sure. I don't know because I feel like like
Yeah, I feel it. I get both what you're saying. So when I lived, well, you know, I'm not that far from you either. I mean, like I do have a lot of that. same lifestyle. But when I was living off grid and everything was like so related to energy use and like, this much firewood cooks this much chicken, you know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
all measured out. Like everything, the materials were like really evident. And like basically when you're out of power, that was it. Like you just didn't do anything else because you were out of power. You allotted a certain amount of power that the land provided. And when that was gone, like you're done. So we just learned to like adjust to the little amount of energy that our property could make. And it changed by the day, by the season, and you do adjust, right? Like, so I guess in an infinite, like, it was really good for my brain to like live like that because it was like, it made sense. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
there's this much rain to spin the little micro hydro. Therefore, we have this much, extra juice to do whatever. But when you have this like infinite power supply, you don't, it's just like, it doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes,
and
yes,
so it's like
yes.
you can just go and go, like, whatever. It doesn't, and there's something about like having less that makes you savor the things, right? Like it makes it more precious, like more special. If anybody's growing a garden, like you get that one tomato instead of like 50,000 tomatoes, and you're like, whoa, that tomato,
Yeah.
man. Like that is like a lot of energy went to make that tomato.
Yes,
That's all
yes.
you get. So I do think there's a piece of this, like where we swim in a culture of you can have anything. Like go on Amazon, you could buy literally anything. And it's like this incredible place of humans to
And it
be
kind of
in.
short circuits you.
We've never been able, I mean, there's no point in time when you've been able to go online and literally just order anything and have it delivered to your door within a week. Like it's like delicious opulence beyond what any royalty in the past have ever experienced. I mean, it's
Right.
just this, but it's all crap. It's all this like mass produced cheap crap. And we know that. And a part of our soul does know that, like you said,
Yes.
there's nothing to this stuff. It's just stuff. So it's not that precious. So we have a lot of it and it's very convenient.
Mm-hmm.
And also the culture, like we don't have a culture like Bali where like, their art is how you participate in the culture is you participate in the art. Like that's how you
Mm.
know you're in Bali or you're Balinese is everyone's doing the same rituals to them, buying the same flowers or silks or whatever. And in America, like how do we know we're Americans?
We
We buy
don't.
shit. I mean,
Oh,
we
oh,
keep
yeah,
up.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's like what we, if we were performing a cultural ritual, we go buy the Christmas lights, we go buy you know what I mean? It's like, that's what Americans do. Like, we don't have a very old culture. We don't really have a lot of it tied up with anything other than consumption. Every holiday is just a pile of consumption, really. If you think about it, it's just the stuff you buy, the turkey you
Tully,
buy. I don't know.
Tully
It just
was
feels like that to
talking,
me.
Tully was talking about how we were just talking about like gift economies and like gift giving and how that all goes, and he's like, I think it's really too bad that we have this idea that gifts have to be something new
Hmm.
versus here's something that is still useful and beautiful that I think would serve you,
Yeah.
and I was like, but like you could totally make that agreement or introduce that agreement to a friend group or a family of like, let's just give each other things that we already have, like share
Yeah.
what we already have, like what, like, so it's like, I feel like there's ways that we can shift the narrative for our own individual lives. I think even if the society and the bigger culture, it can do whatever it wants, but
Hmm.
like if we have awareness, then we can change the agreements that we have. Like we don't have to buy into what the
No.
bigger
Yeah.
society, especially, I don't know.
I
But
mean,
in
when it
here,
comes to talismans, what you were saying is that I do feel like we do kind of create little talismans for ourselves, like, just by our own, like you said, I think some like old part of our souls like to do that. Like we want our little,
Mhm.
we understand that the matter of the world has potency and that we connect to it. But I was just gonna say, like in America, it's hard because there's just so much stuff
Yes, it's
that it's hard to you know what I mean? I think that's where it comes down to for me. Whereas if you're in an older culture and an older, it seems like more natural. They have a more natural affinity to be like, this is, if you're in
well for
Japan, for example, there seems to be a lot more of that energy of like, temples everywhere, and there's lots of sacred things and things you do with the sacred things, and everybody understands that, and
Yes.
and people get things from these temples, and every temple we went to in Japan, so many talismans. Like when you said talismans, that's all I thought. This immediately of
Yeah,
this
yeah.
forest temples. We were hiking this trail called the Kamano Kodo in Japan, and like it was such a cool thing to do. You hike, and then you get to like these temples, and it's Shinto, so all the temples are built facing some beautiful thing, a waterfall, or and the temple is for the waterfall. It's not to a god. Like it's just for nature.
Mm.
Like it's just they believe like our human job is to reflect and just be grateful and honor like the beauty of nature. Because
Wow.
I'm a Shinto person. I didn't even know anything about Shintoism until I went there, but I'm like, this is my religion.
Nice.
It was very, very, but every little temple you go to, you have talismans, and they all are very specific animals or images of that place. And you're supposed to gather them as you go. So you have this little talisman packets as you walk
Oh,
this temple route. And it was so fun. Like, of course, I got, and then at the bottom of the stairs, there's some guy selling like little waffles that they stamp with that same image of the
oh,
talisman, so that waffle came from that temple vendor. And they just get so into it. And I know the Japanese also have a hyper consumeristic side to them, but they also have this kind of grounding in. They do like their little, sacred talismans. It's like a part of, they like to make them, and they have a huge history of like all their arts and how everything, the beauty of it, making beautiful things.
I think that we have, I mean, I think I notice in myself, there's this tension between kind of desiring radical simplicity, like going on, like be doing a touring on a bicycle, for instance, and you're like pared down to, or backpacking, you're pared down to just the essentials of what you need to keep yourself going, and nothing
Mhm.
else, and that's gorgeous. I like,
It is.
like there's such a deep beauty to that existence, and I even think of like the early days of the Blue Scorcher when the kitchen was incredibly spare.
Mm,
And then, but then we would still, like, we were making so much food in this like crazy, like way simpler than my home kitchen. It was crazy. I can't believe that we did it. Like we started out with like a freaking Goodwill George Foreman grill because we're like, oh, we should make some paninis so we can have a hot sandwich. Like, like, I mean, it's insane what we did with like what we had. And
mm-hmm,
but there was a beauty to it. I feel like it did, that having parameters really inspires creativity
mm-hmm.
quite a bit. Like I think that's
Yeah.
my job as a workshop facilitator is to set the parameters.
Mm-hmm. That's what
It's
I meant
not,
about the off-grid thing. Like the parameters were
yeah,
set, and you
yes.
lived in that parameter, and it did make it special. Like you make that George Foreman work,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
figure it
totally.
out. Like, and with no parameters, it gets wild. Like
Yeah.
we're not asked to think that hard or to
But
get that creative.
I think the other side of it is that we sense, and I think, I don't know, I think that maybe some people don't, but I have a sense of dis-ease at a lot of like of clutter, and then yet my life is often super cluttered. And so then I have all this shame about how cluttered my life is. And like there's like a lot of stickiness for me. Like, I'm not I don't like shopping very much. So that's not, like I generally have like one or two pairs of shoes, which I think for the average American woman is like completely insane. But and I'm not saying that like that mean, like I'm just saying that it's not what I'm drawn to, not like I'm not judging anyone because I can see that I'm absolutely taking part in the consumeristic world, and it's got this thing of like, I mean, my list of things that I want for my studio. I'm not
That's what I'm
I'm
saying.
not
You don't have
dreaming.
shoes. You've got other things on your
I've got
list.
other stuff on my list is what it is.
That's right.
And it
Yeah.
totally is like this like both and situation in which part of me desires to have nothing
Mm-hmm.
and part of me wants all the things, and then like and both ways feel, like and there's a lot of tar
Mm-hmm.
baby in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sticky.
And and how
I
do you
want to
get
say,
rid of stuff?
yeah, yeah, there's that. And that's what I mean. Coming back to like when you do have things that you actually care about and then you need to get rid of them, it's actually not that easy. You have like these now imbued objects. You're like, oh, how do I do this?
So what at the
Uh,
end of your trail, when you hiked up, when you were hiking to the Shinto temples,
mhm.
so then how do you discard, like, what do you do with the talismans
I still
after?
have them. Yeah, I have them. I brought them
So
back.
like it's like you can't just like I think like what do you do with them? Like do
Yes.
you have to return them to the soil? Do you like, you know what I
Well,
mean?
I like a good fire. A lot of them are wood.
Mm.
And I've been thinking like, so one of the other things I was gonna say about talismans, and maybe I've already said this on the podcast, but I don't think so. Um, that I have been taking my crystals. Did I mention this? Up
I think
Neocani
that's worth
Mountain.
repeating.
Yeah. Me and Brigham had a collection of crystals that we kind of bought somewhere along the line, together. And they sat on our bedroom windowsill. And I've been walking them up Neocani Mountain on hikes. And I just leave one there every time I go. And so just kind of offering the crystals back to the mountain, which is a
Mm.
very sacred mountain. It has been here for a long, for indigenous people as well. And so that feels really good. And I actually pulled out my little Japanese things the other day. I was looking at them and they're really cool, but I thought I should go hang them on Neocani Mountain because that the idea of the sacred mountain is like very much in line with what these temples were about. Like it's about
Mhm.
honoring nature. It wasn't about you or, like I said, a deity in specific. It was about reflecting back the sacredness of nature. So yeah, they're biodegradable. I think that buried, offering them to oceans, putting them on sacred places is great. Crystals and little artifacts. But one of the things I also want to just mention, I don't know if it's a talisman, but it really worked. I don't know, were you here for this or not? I don't think you were. We took, I kept having this idea that we were going to bury crystals around the edges of my property here at
Mm.
North Fork. And so I got all this obsidian from a woman who, I'm not going to go through that whole story. Anyway, it was special obsidian her brother had collected before he died. And so we got all this really big chunks of obsidian. And they were just like sitting on my porch for like a year and a half or maybe 2 years. I was like, I don't know what to do. And then finally, after Brigham had left, I was like, you know what? I feel living alone here. Like I want protection. Like I would like to, and I kept getting this bury the obsidian like in a circle, like, close off the boundaries. And
Mm.
we did. And so a bunch of girlfriends and we went around and we very intentionally buried each one. And I just kind of felt as we went like here, and
Mm.
here, and there was a bunch of them. So the whole property line was like buried with these big chunks of obsidian. And man, ever since we did that, and that was years ago, or yeah, almost 2 years ago now, I haven't thought about, I felt completely like it has never occurred to me not to feel safe here. Like it just, any
Uh,
weird flutterings that I was having about it was just gone. Like I just realized the other day, I'm like, I haven't thought about that like ever. Like I feel so incredibly held, like so incredibly secure. And I think it's just that circle of rocks.
well, and I think so, which brings me to this idea of, is like a meaningful object meaningful just because we have this intention, or does giving our intention to an object to create meaning draw attention from the spiritual realms, and so that there it is like a connecting point between us and all that is, like
Yeah.
that. I mean, and so that I because and yeah.
I mean, obsidian has its own energy. Like you said, some things, I mean, crystals do have their own, I believe, their own kind of
Hmm.
resonance to them, depending on where they're from and what they're made of. And this was, I don't know, like I haven't thought about it. I don't set intent, I don't walk the property thinking about that line of, you know what I mean? Like
Yes,
there's no intention
yes.
for me anymore.
It's holding it.
It's holding it. I just realized that the absence of, yeah, it's just like, oh, I haven't thought about that. And I used to kind of have nights where I'd go and I'd be a little concerned. I'd hear something outside and I'd be like, oh, you know, I don't want to try to lock the door. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
and that just
totally.
hasn't been a vibe at all. Just nothing. Like, oh, I feel totally fine. Never even thought about it.
Oh, it's so great.
I know. So those are my
It's-
talismans too, in a way. And we're using that word pretty loosely in this show, but
Yes, yeah.
um, I think an
So
object imbued with intention, that holding a resonance.
and so like so I'm looking out the window on the clothesline. There are two square silks that are dark red from madder that I grew, and I just dyed them for these girls. And I included in the dye bath, of course, some other plants, not for the purpose of color, but for the intention. And I'm like, like, so it's like there's part of me that is like so fulfilled by that. It's like, whew, I'm in my super happy space. And there's also that little critical voice of like, like eye roll. You're putting in you know what I mean? Like there's this eye
Oh,
roll part of my brain that I have to like invite out
hmm.
anytime I want to do this kind
Yeah.
of work,
Yeah.
And it's like, and I've been making all the parts for these books for the Hoffman Center
Mm,
and trying to figure out like how do you create a book that's going to be filled with the thoughts and drawings of the community for they're having a 20th anniversary.
mm,
And it's going to be kind of end up like I think a little bit in a time capsule for like I don't know if it's for 5 years or for so that it'll come out at special anniversaries. I think to be continue to have things added to it. And so like um I so like I did a indigo cloth for the book covers and I stitched it. And I was like, at first I stitched one and then I was like, I feel like I need it to have more. And then we came up with the idea that like Morse code is dots and dashes. And it's like, well,
mm,
that's like small stitches, big stitches. And so if I do a line of a pattern of small stitches and big stitches, that can be I can spell out anything I want. And so
mm.
I did that to spell out, Hoffman Center for the Arts, Manzanita, Oregon, Hoffman Center for the Arts, Manzanita,
Oh
Oregon,
man,
and
that's
dots and
so cool.
dashes. And then I know, but like so like for the person looking at it,
Hmm.
of course, it's completely a it will like and so my question is like do people feel it? Do they like what is it like the part of what makes us part of what is alive about this is that I like we just hung a show last a week ago. Actually, a week ago today, Britt and I went up and hung the Indigo Vision show at the Southwester Gallery.
Mm,
It's just this cute little. I love having shows there because it's this little trailer. It's super cute, and this is like it was like 158 postcards, including yours, from like dozens of adults and like 100 children
mm,
that we asked to kind of like connect to this possible future that is well-being, so like sending forward this connection to our dreams for love and connection and all the things, right? That's not a very good explanation of it, but when I went on Friday to check it or Saturday morning to check it, it had been kind of messed up a little bit. Like it was clear that somebody had let some kids just play in there. And I
mm,
think also like I had left like 50 postcards so that people could continue to make postcards and there's indigo ink and they were all gone and like they were all over kind of like all over and some of them had been put up, but it was clear that some young people had like gone through. It's like, I don't like that one. I don't like that one. And like just kind of like
mhm,
the abundance of them was triggered this like worthlessness of them.
mm,
And so instead of being like this contemplative moment at this little desk that we set up, it something else happened in that
mhm,
space. And I was thinking about when I had a show there a few years ago, we had a soundscape that was playing. And when I would go up once a week to check the show and make sure the installation was still cool, like it was always it maintained its like templeness. Like I'd kind of
Mm-hmm.
created this
Mm-hmm.
space to honor the ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
and it stayed like it would it you know like a little bit of this or that, like a little adjusting, but it wasn't like what happened when I came on Saturday, and like
Mm-hmm.
it'd been kind of like some parts of it had been dismantled, and there was just like a lot of mess. And it was we cleaned it up, and but my question to my in my head since then is like, what was it? Why, like, was it like, what are the things that helped someone when they walked into the Ancestral Threads show understand they were walking into sacred space?
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that when you are trying to hold a sacred space for people to imagine something positive, which is what the Indigo Visions show is,
Mm-hmm.
they that was not connected to that. And I'm and I think part of I I have a couple ideas. One, I was wondering if the soundscape helped, because I think that does, because that has a literal resonance.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thought I had is that were there untended, even though there's a big sign says no unattended children in the gallery, right? Um, when people walked in, it was clear that children had made a lot of the postcards. Did they
Mm-hmm.
think it was a child space now instead of uplifting children in
Mm-hmm.
the art that they make? It because children are so unvalued in our society, that it like actually made it a
Right.
less valuable space,
Mm-hmm.
because it's because even like while we were working on it, when we were putting it up, two people came in, and they're like, oh, and I'm like, da da da, this is what you're seeing. And and the woman's like, oh, these kids are so talented, some of them. I'm like, well, no, there's there's like 36 adults have made things too. It's like, it's not,
Right.
or more than that actually, so
Mm-hmm.
like it's like, no, it's not just children, it's all of us. And but you could just tell she was like, how cute,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
totally missed the
Yeah.
point, even though I was there to interpret for her.
Yeah. I think both are true, probably. And there's probably other reasons. I mean, it could just be, like you said, I mean, you said, before you explained that story, you were like, so why is it that some people, we stitch this Morse code in, why? Like, is anybody even going to receive that? And I guess my answer when you asked that question was, yeah, if their radio is tuned in, they will. Like I
Hmm.
said, all we can do is just put it out there. We are as individuals, we are the signal, right?
Yes, yes,
Every,
yes.
and we're also a radio, like we're also a receiver, but the signal we send out is us, our individual life force. That's what we that's like our little signal that we can put out into the universe from our spark of our life. And your creativity is a piece of that, right? So you're sending out
Right.
that signal. Some people would probably are going to notice it and be like, oh my God, it's going to be really meaningful and powerful to them. Most people probably will not, but that doesn't mean it's not in the, it's
It's
like,
it's still it's still
you
sending
still
out the
got to,
signal.
you still got to send out your signal. Like you still got to
Yeah.
do your indigo show, whether, some random kids come in there and appreciate it or not, or whatever happened, like that's like the receiving part is not what we can control. People tune in or they don't, right? But it doesn't, so worrying about how they're receiving it, I think is where we get
It's
stuck. We get
yes.
stuck in that. And really all we have to do, like I said, is like going back to clear the channel. All we have to do is clear our channel of anything that's not authentic to us, that's been stuck in there, that's blocking our signal, right? So like we clear our channel, we put out a strong signal, and then who's ready to receive it receives it at whatever level they receive it. And sometimes like I almost embarrassed to say, but I'm listening to Eat, Pray, Love. And I know it's such a cliche book, but like I read it like a long time ago when it came out, right? And I was like, it's good. And now I'm just listening to her read it again as an audiobook, and I'm just getting like a whole nother level of it, because she's talking about divorce and like all of it, and at the point I
Mm-mm.
read it before, I was like, oh, and it was
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
no recognition of like the emotion she was dealing with. And now I'm in that place where I'm like, oh man, do I really get this now? Like how her processing all of that. And so my receiver is now matured, and because of experience, to receive more of what she was actually talking about. And I'm
Or
sure,
you're or matured or just like on a different you're in a different part of the bandwidth now. So it's
yeah,
like you're at
exactly.
103.7
Right.
instead of like 98.9 or whatever.
Yeah. And I think that maybe our bandwidth, it does expand the longer we're alive, right? Because we
Yeah,
have more
hopefully.
experience.
Hopefully, I don't
We have more,
know.
yeah. I mean, maybe not, but I think in general, the more experience you have in life, your bandwidth kind of opens up to be like, even if you like speak another language or something, like any experience that you
Yes,
have, or
yes,
you play an
yes, yeah.
instrument or you learn an art form, all of a sudden, anybody putting that out there, you're receiving that differently. You're like, all right, when I hear drumming, I'm listening to it differently because I drum, whereas somebody who doesn't is like, oh, that's nice, whatever. But I can hear different, I'm receiving different
Yes,
parts of that
yes,
information.
yes,
Like
for
you as a
sure.
natural dyer walk through the world seeing fabric and weavings, and you're getting that at such a level that most people are not. We're just like, that's pretty, walks on, and
Well,
you're
and
appreciating it.
it's the thing that I'm thinking about right now is you burying the obsidian. And I'm wondering if the process of hanging ancestral threads was a very different process than the
Mm,
process of hanging indigo visions.
mm,
So like I was staying over there for a whole week and
mm.
I actually did like some little space clearing rituals when I set up ancestral threads and I meditated in there and I think I actually did quite a bit of just filling that space with this
Mm.
resonance of and then also because it was about the ancestors, I think the ancestors were fully around.
I was gonna mention that too. Like just the intention, who you welcomed into that space is also kind of holding some energy there
Yes.
too. Yeah.
And so like I think that the day that we put it up, I was, there was, it wasn't that situation.
Mm-hmm.
We had Britt's daughter was with us and she hadn't been feeling very well. And so like, like
Mm-hmm.
our minds were not we we didn't do we didn't definitely didn't do any rituals during that time. And so
Yeah. And
like
I'm gonna
now
say
I feel
like,
like I just want to go back over there and do because it's
well,
up for 3 months.
even future visions is a very different tone to set than
Yes.
ancestors. Like ancestors
Yes.
is you're calling in a lot of energy from,
Yes.
you know, the people, places, and I think that energy is always available to us. But future visions is like, what do we want to do for I mean, it's a more open like feel to
Yes.
it. It's not
Yes.
quite as present. It's
Yes.
out there. It's like
Yes.
a little more ethereal, right? So that also could be a part of it. It's like feels like the difference between calling in the earth element, which is like woof,
Oof.
versus
Yeah.
like air, which is like
Yes.
maybe the postcards get all
Yes.
messed up and thrown around and like,
Oh my
it
gosh,
is
this
a
is great.
more tumultuous kind of unpredictable energy. Like I don't know, I'm going to offer that as just a
No, I
different
totally,
element.
truly, I'm really actually that's really making a lot of sense to me because I'm simultaneously all these things happening simultaneously in my life right now. The this matter show that's happening in November and there's like that's that I'm curating and making stuff for. It is very earth energy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like the mycorrhizal network. It's like it's totally interdependence and the
Mm-hmm.
dirt and roots and like um so I can tell right now, like when I feel myself into the gallery space when it's set up, it feels way different.
Mm.
And like this definitely feels like the indigo visions definitely feels like a sky.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sky energy.
Yeah, it's almost like a kite, like just hanging out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
so
it's gonna be
like
moved around a little bit. Kites kind of,
yeah.
around.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Thank you. This is helpful. Because I was a little like really bummed out actually on Saturday
Oh
morning,
yeah, and
you know?
I think that that's no, of course. It's hard to see something you put a lot of time into get, disrupted. But I think lately I've just been, I know it's gonna sound cheesy, but lately I've just been thinking like if we just say yes to everything, like we were like, yes, it got messed up, or it changed.
Mm,
It isn't what I left it. I said it this way and it changed. And what if I just say yes to that?
mm-hmm.
Instead of being bummed out, instead of being like, no, it should have been this way. It should have been respected. It should, these are all thoughts, right? And they're kind of in resistance to the reality of what you just walked into. And we do this in life constantly. And I do this constantly because our brain likes to go like, no, 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 this is how it should be. But things change. And then if there is nothing but just reality of what we're dealing with, like just saying yes to it is so much less effort. We're like, yeah, okay,
Mm-hmm.
now this is happening. So here it is. Yes, yes, this happened. Okay, fine. And here I am. And
It's
then at least the resistance goes away, And then you're like, okay, I'm here with this now. So do I want to change it? Do I want to hang, what about like, do I want to do an intention here? What about this? Or do I want to just maybe go with it or, like open up to that
the neither.
possibility that it wasn't on wrong,
Right, right.
it
What
was
it,
all art and magic. I mean, things are coming in like this is all just
yes.
response. It's a response.
Right, right, right. Like it was
So
obviously that there was a lot of action in there.
yeah,
And
it stirred some stuff up.
it
It's
stirred
a
some stuff up.
response. I mean, we can look at almost anything, even, like if sometimes, even if you're like, oh, I wish I was invited to that thing and I wasn't invited or whatever. It's like, what if that's a yes? Like, then it wasn't the right time. It wasn't for me. It
Mhm.
wasn't, wasn't supposed to be there.
Right, right, right. Totally.
There's nothing wrong. What if, nothing's wrong? What if this is just a different path? It wasn't the one our brains thought it was going to go down, but there it is.
And
So,
so I think that so I at the end of this conversation where we find
mhm,
ourselves, do you feel like right now in your life, you're in a way, you're winnowing away
mhm,
and also like distributing
mhm,
the harvest of your life up until this time, right? So
mhm,
you're not um but I think part of that is that winnowing back to your kind of like getting out that Artemis
mhm,
statue and connecting back to that. It's like connecting to like kind of like your core self.
mhm.
So how do you feel like your relationship to meaning and intention will relate as you do this process?
I want to answer that by saying that, there's no wrong way, that it is a fluid, even though talismans feel like they're things, like they're material things, everything is changeable. I mean, everything is always in motion and always changes. When a talisman was powerful in one era is meaningless in the hands of someone else. Like it is about relationship with the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a vacuum,
Mm-hmm.
a piece of obsidian sitting in the ground until I pick it up and have a relationship with it. Maybe that is the spark. It's the co-shared intention of the thing. And we end relationships, we form new ones. It's so I guess I'm just gonna say I think it's all about relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think change is a constant. And I think that if we create items from our relationships and then they go on to have other lives,
Mm-hmm.
great. That's a beautiful thing. Like if a table gets passed down or it's like a sharing of yourself, a sharing of your love, of a piece of your life that can then go on and be imbued. It's very much like having a relationship with a person, you know? Um, yeah. So
And so it's
sometimes
like
we,
holding it lightly. It's like how do you have the intention, but you can also hold it lightly and so that
yeah.
it can keep going if when it needs to.
Yeah. I mean, I think if we hold anything too tightly, it can be turned into a crutch or something, it can get weird.
Or worse. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you have this lucky thing that you're obsessed with and then you don't have it, you're like all of a sudden you can't go do the job interview. It's like that gets to be a problem
Yeah.
because honestly, it probably you could do an interview without thing in your
The
pocket.
it's like the Dumbo feather, right?
Yeah, don't
Like
get attachment is what we don't want. We don't want attachment. We want relationship. That's my ender.
I love it. Thank you.
I love you.
I love you. Thanks for listening to my yeah.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening to our
My
whatever.
I'm still thinking on it. I feel like there's a lot of tangled threads in how I'm thinking about all this, and you're getting to see
Save
this.
it for
I feel
another
like,
episode.
well, no, I feel like this is the conversation of like I've got the big knot, and I've gotten some pieces untangled, but there's still a lot.
Yeah, we're not going to
So.
untangle your ball in one episode.
No. Well, you know what I mean. Like, it's like,
Impossible.
no, of course. But then people listening to this be like, where did that go? I don't know.
I
May
love
it
you.
serve you. I love you.